Watch the boy on the right of the screen. He pulls out a gun and opens fire, injuring 2 Israelis before he's shot himself. He's said to be just 13 years old. Violence and deaths on both sides have been spiralling. A new generation is taking up arms. Palestinians blame the entrenched Israeli occupation. Israelis blame Palestinian militant groups.
The police will not allow terror organizations to take advantage of children and youth at the hands of their agenda. I want to let you guys know that this is a significant rise in the level of terror. It's an uptick, and the Israel police are going to act accordingly, strong with determination and professionalism.
Today's shooting comes as the victims of another attack last night are yet to be buried. 7 Israelis were gunned down outside a synagogue in a settlement in East Jerusalem, the deadliest attack here in more than a decade. The victims included this couple. Grief and anger are raw.
The atmosphere here is very difficult. We are here with a heavy heart. Our friend is in hospital, fighting for his life.
I want the death penalty for terrorists and harder punishments. I want all families to be deported to Syria or any other Arab countries.
What happened here was terrible, but if there's a harsh response, it's just going to lead to more violence from the other side too, isn't it?
No, I think a harsher response will control the situation. The penalties are too light. If you increase punishments, these kinds of attacks will significantly decrease.
There were fireworks in Gaza last night as some Palestinians celebrated the attack, distributing sweets. It came after 7 Palestinians from militant groups and 2 civilians were killed in a massive Israeli army raid in the occupied West Bank earlier this week. At the family home of the gunman, his father said he had no idea about his plans.
He is a normal, simple person. He goes to work and back home. He has no political affiliation. He is a regular person. I know he is my son, but I don't know why he did it. Each person has his own mindset.
Israel's new hard-line National Security Minister, Itamar Ben-Gvir, visited the scene last night. The country's ultra-nationalist coalition was elected, promising to respond harshly to militant violence. Now the right wing is looking to see what he does next.
I came, I left my Sabbath table, I left my wife, I left my children. I hear you, you were right. The burden of proof is on us. We need to do and react now, because this can't continue like this. My friends, I'm here for you.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu called on Israelis not to take the law into their own hands. But Palestinian anger is already rising at near-daily, often deadly raids. This conflict is in a dangerous new phase.
We're here at the scene of last night's attack. A small crowd has gathered, some of them chanting "Death to the terrorists, death to the Arabs." We have been getting some reports of relatively minor reprisal attacks by Israeli settlers on Palestinians in some parts of the occupied West Bank. Extra Israeli troops are being deployed there. This is the first major security challenge for this new government. Many of the people in this area voted for the ultra-religious and ultra-nationalist parties that make up the coalition. But speaking to some residents, many of them who want to see harsher measures taken in response to attacks like this, say that they worry even hardline figures like Itamar Ben-Gvir are going to act in a more toned-down fashion now that they're in power. Of course, many others hoping that's exactly what does happen in order to avoid an escalation. The government cabinet is meeting tonight discussing measures including easing up the permits of guns for Israeli citizens and taking further punitive measures against the families of militants.
Sekinder Kermani in Jerusalem. Well, a little earlier I spoke to Professor Yossi Meckelberg, Associate Fellow of the Middle East and Africa Programme at Chatham House. I started by asking him what might drive someone as young as 13 to such a violent act.
Not as justifying it, but some people will resort to violence. And in the case of 13 years old, it's tragic by itself that 13 years old should be in school, should build their future. And again, this is the tragedy of this conflict, that instead of looking into make peacemakers into heroes, is those who kill each other are the heroes of these relations between the Palestinians and the Israelis.
The noises that we're hearing so far from Israeli government officials, though, are that of a crackdown. What would you expect in coming days?
Yeah, this is the same thing we hear for so many years. Just use more force and crack down on militancy. And at the end of the day, it doesn't get the result. It just gets the situation worse. It means more violation of people's human rights, more Palestinian deaths and incarcerated, and it's not going to provide a solution, neither to Israel's security and obviously not for the Palestinian. Yes, this right-wing government came to power on the basis will be even tougher than previous government, but it was bad even with previous governments, including previous Netanyahu governments. It doesn't provide the answer. The alternative that people like the new Minister of National Security, Ben Gvir, to give people more weapons will mean more people killed, more bloodshed, and more friction that will prolong this conflict by decades. All what we are going to see is more collective punishment.
And in terms of reaction from Palestinians, we've seen the likes of Hamas praise the attacks that have taken place, but not claim responsibility. They appear to have been carried out by lone attackers. What does that tell you about how things might develop?
I think this probably would worry the Israeli security forces, because they will feel better equipped to deal with organizations that behind this kind of militancy. But when there are lone attackers, they can appear anywhere. As we saw yesterday, attack one piece of weapon, bullets, and create terrible carnage. But I think at the same time, organizations like Hamas, if it wants to be part of the political solution in the future, it shouldn't praise, especially as a religious movement, the killing of people, the just worshippers coming out of synagogue. This won't help the Palestinians, it won't help the Jews in this place, and I don't think Hamas is covering itself exactly with glory.
On Monday, the US Secretary of State is due to visit the region. Do you think the US can play any role in brokering some sort of truce, some sort of move towards peace?
I think it can, but it doesn't want. When it comes to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, the Biden administration is wishy-washy. You know, it's already more than 2 years since won the election and entered the White House, and we don't see any moves to try again to ease the situation. They could help with the economic situation, more work permits, allowing more movement between the West Bank, also between Gaza and the West Bank and Israel, but they don't initiate enough engagement between the Israel Palestinians, at least to diffuse some of the situation, also to come across at least more as honest brokers, because right now the Palestinians don't trust them at all.
Professor Yossi Mekelberg, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.